Nebraska, they let us down. We drank the Kool-Aid. Scott Frost, once again, blowing an early lead. Trey, what do you think this
So
means for Scott Frost and the Cornhuskers?
I believe this is his last year. He's had roughly 5 years to turn this program around, and I'm not sure the best season that they have, but it just hasn't been to the level that Nebraska is used to being at, with them winning multiple championships in the late '90s and playing in a national championship in the early 2000s. It's just he went into a program and promised to turn around, and he just hasn't delivered yet. So I'm not too high on Scott Frost right now, and I believe he won't finish out the year. I believe he'll get fired sometime in the middle of the year.
Yeah, I think that at this point, it's not a matter of how many years he has left. It's how many games does he have left.
Or when he's
I
going
really
to leave.
don't. I don't think that he's gonna. I don't know. I don't think he's gonna make it.
My biggest takeaway on that game is that I don't think they're going to go 8-4 like I had them picked. This was an easy
wake up call.
Yeah, I had them 6-0. I had them beating Oklahoma, beating Indiana, and Rutgers, and of course the three non-conference. Well, Northwestern's not a non-conference game, but I think even if they beat Oklahoma, he's got to ultimately win 8 or 9 games this year, or he is gone. And if he loses to Oklahoma and maybe Indiana and goes 0-3 in the Big Ten, he might not finish the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I heard earlier today. I don't know if this is accurate. This is his 5th year, maybe 6th year.
Fifth.
But I want to say he's 15-30 in conference play. That's just
not good.
Yeah.
I think I might have been too high on Nebraska this year. I had them going 6-6, and now looking at this game, I believe I should have had them finishing worse.
And Nebraska's in the weaker division.
Yeah,
that's just unbelievable. They only play 2 games from the East, maybe 3.
Two.
The only difficult game it looks like they have is Michigan in Big Ten play.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got my notes here, and before I get into the actual game and talking about what this means for Nebraska, I want to give Northwestern some props. I pretty
Shout
low
out
on them.
Northwestern.
Pretty low on them at the beginning of the season, and they just own the line of scrimmage on both ends. Their D-line and O-line. They threw when they needed to throw, and they were able to run when they needed to run at the clock at the end. And, I actually left my game notes at Rob. I have a little book, so I had to kind of just go back and think, which isn't always a good thing for me. Sometimes that's when bad things happen, is when I think. But from what I remember, Casey Thompson looked pretty good in the first half. And it's kind of just a tale of two halves. But even with that, you see that interception at the end of the game, that necessarily wasn't his fault. You had receivers who were just playing volleyball with the football. They were just bouncing it up in the air, putting it in harm's way. It didn't look good. That offense, it sputtered bad, and really what the drops and the tips were what killed the pass game.
Mathis, I would definitely put both of those interceptions on his receivers. They were not really good passes. They were both behind the receiver. They should have been caught, but that's not when the game turned around. When did the game turn around?
When Scott Frost decided to do the onside kick. That was a stupid decision.
Yep.
But going back on to Casey Thompson, I mean, he's not making the play calls, but you're throwing the ball 42 times a game. You can't only score one touchdown doing that and throwing for 355 yards. You have to fill up the stat sheet throwing that much.
Both of those interceptions were 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. I mean, that just, it wasn't like it was intercepted a deep pass, down the sideline or anything.
And he could be thrown too hard.
You could almost call it a punt.
Yeah. It's from the onside kick on. Nebraska went 0 for 5 on the possessions. They scored they scored at 9:37 in the third, and then they scored at 9:09 in the third. And from that point on, they didn't have a drive more than 4 plays. And
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can blame Scott Frost for that. I mean, yeah, the onside kick, it did take a lot of momentum away, but also
you don't lose a game off one play in the third quarter.
At some point. Someone's got to make a play.
Yeah. There were so many other drives and missed opportunities. But like I said in our preseason predictions, at some point, like the head coach has his fingerprints, his DNA on that team. And if the team's DNA is that they sputter and blow leads, then that's got to say something about your coach. And so I'm concerned, and to pivot to what this could mean for their future. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but his buyout drops. His coach buyout for if he gets fired, it drops October 1st. And so I'm not looking at a number like 8 or 9 wins that he has to get by the end of the year to keep his job. You got to
win 4 games in between now and then.
You got to
win the next. You got to be at least 4-1 coming.
They go in their bye week. I think it's the 15th they play, and then they go into their bye week. You have to go into that bye week with 1 or 2 losses. You got to pick up every game except for maybe the close loss to OU or Purdue. But you got to.
Their bye week 5.
I can't even say that. I can't agree with that.
If y'all are saying they got to be 4-1 before the buyout kicks in, then you're saying they have to beat Oklahoma.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I feel like they have to beat Oklahoma for him to at least finish out this year.
And if they don't, it needs to be close.
Yeah.
And
I'd say a loss is a loss. I'd say even if they lose a close game, I don't see him finishing out the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a game they're not supposed to win.
OU could.
He's what, 5-21.
22
in one possession games.
It's 5-21 or 22.
5-21 in one possession games.
It's, and you don't want to say, hey, a week 0 game can lose this man his job, like just based off that. But he's had 4 seasons before this. He's built a reputation on it, and I'm not saying you can't turn it around, but if you do turn it around, you have to turn it around like right now. Like,
and the sad thing for him, he may very well be a good coach. I think that onside kick was questionable because they were already dominating the game. You do that when you're trying to get back in the game. But unfortunately, he could go somewhere else, and you never know. He just might be a great quarterback. But he's snake bitten at Nebraska. And that team probably just needs an infusion of a new leadership.
Yeah, you can't turn over 22 guys and then have the exact same. You can't turn over 22 guys through the transfer portal and then have the exact same problems you had last year.
Yeah.
Because I don't mean to be disrespectful to Northwestern, but they out-talented them, but they got out-coached pretty bad.
I mean,
the stats were
the aggression on Northwestern was just crazy. Like, they just ran the ball all over them, and it felt like Nebraska literally had no steam under them.
Hey, and here's the thing to think about.
That flight to Ireland killed them.
So you turned over, you got a new quarterback. You got Casey Thompson, who is an upgrade at the quarterback position, but he had the same problems at Texas that Scott Frost has had at Nebraska. They were going up a lot in the second half, going into the second half, and they sputtered late. They lost leads, and I think it's easier to lose those games when you have experience in losing those games.
Tell you what, the equation for a successful team obviously is not a snake bit coach and a former quarterback from Texas.
Yeah, never a good combination.
That's a bad combination.
You can't complete only 8 passes in the second half and expect to win a close game.
Yeah.
And like looking at like the implications for the rest of the season, I had them going into week 7, 5-1. And if they lost that Northwestern game, I don't really have any, and I had them losing the Oklahoma game, so I don't really have any confidence in them winning the Oklahoma game anymore. And how much confidence do I have them beating Indiana or Rutgers? And I definitely don't think they'll beat Purdue. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Michigan.
Yeah,
There's not a whole lot of wins that I can see for the rest of the schedule. I think that 6-6 is like they're gonna have to claw their way to 6.
Yeah.
I had them at 8-4, and if I had to repick, I would probably 6-6 would be the best I could give them. I
Yeah.
think they're probably going to end up being 5-7.
I think
2020 hindsight, I would flip Northwestern and Nebraska, like my picks for them. I had Northwestern going 3-9 on the year, and now I feel like I'm a little bit higher on Northwestern. I feel like I can say they might be a bowl game team. It's a little early, but I mean they play weak teams in the Big Ten later on in the year, and those two games they can pick up, like against Maryland and Illinois.
Northwestern is going to play Duke, then Southern Illinois, and then Miami of Ohio. They could be 4-0.
Yeah.
Yeah. My real.
And you know what? Those are the only 3 games I had them winning.
Yep.
If they win those 3 games, they've already exceeded by 1 the number of wins I had them. I had them at 3-9.
I think I had them around the same.
Yeah.
My issue with it is I put them at 7-5, but I counted on you winning some of those swing games, and if you're losing the games that are close, then that's a big deal still. Like I think that changes the trajectory of your entire team. I mean, they went 3-9 last year. Every single one of those losses was single digits, and the biggest of those was 9 against Ohio State, and the rest of them were not just single digits but single score games.
Yep.
And so if you're having those problems again, then it can be really tough. What I will say is if you take care of business these next 2 weeks, which is a big if, but if you take care of business and you somehow pull off a win against Oklahoma, I think you are at least able to buy yourself your job through the bye week. And then you can see how you do against Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan. I can't remember the other game in that late stretch. But I think at this point Wisconsin. In Minnesota, right?
Let me ask you guys this. Let me ask y'all this. That last turnover came with what, about a minute and a half to go? They're down by
a minute 22,
3.
I think.
I think a minute 28. I think
A minute 28. They're down by 3. They come back and score a touchdown there. What are we talking about? How great Scott did?
No, I
don't
still
even
think
so. Though. I think that Northwestern's not that good of a team. Is a thing.
I don't know. I really don't know what to expect.
You don't think the national media would be talking about how Scott finally, won a late game, a close game, won it late, fantastic drive.
I mean, they were favored by like 29, so I don't know.
I think if they win these next 2 games, it's a sigh of relief. It's because you haven't had it in so long, but I don't think it's necessarily a good sign if you win that game by 5 points.
I don't either.
You had to have handled business. The fact that you lost your momentum after going up 11, that was the cause of concern.
Well, I'm not saying how good Nebraska is. I'm talking about Scott Frost being on the hot seat.
I don't think it changes things because I think they would have won that game in spite.
He finally won a close 1-possession game.
I don't think that game's good enough for him to ultimately keep his job. I mean, they were supposed to beat Northwestern.
When you look at the decisions, like you have to look.
Isn't going to keep you. Beating Northwestern is not going to keep your job, but losing to them could cost you your job.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If they had scored on that final drive, would we be saying, well, that they should have done better, but let's see how they play against Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Or Indiana.
I definitely think we would.
I wouldn't be happy about that game if I was them.
Yeah.
I think from the moment you do that onside kick, even if you're going to dogfight through the end of it and you win, like if you flip the end, I still would be concerned about my prediction moving forward because you have coaching decisions in a game. Like doing that onside was a turning point. And so
I'm just
when you make those bad decisions. Go ahead.
What I'm saying is I think the national media, and I want to avoid this ourselves, being fickle. If that one guy on the front line for Northwestern hadn't been paying attention and scooped up that onside kick, if it had gone Nebraska's way, would we be talking about what a bold call that was? You
Well,
know,
yeah.
if Nebraska had recovered it.
If you want me to be honest, no, I wouldn't. I think that it's too ballsy. You are trying to keep your job right now if you're Scott Frost, and you're constantly making decisions that are too risky. You're already up 11. Pin them deep and
Yeah.
trust your defense. That's what you have to do.
Some people have said, he's been accused of not being aggressive. I think that might have come into play about, hey, we got momentum. Let's keep it going. They won't expect an onside kick. I think he probably did that. He probably wouldn't have done that normally, but I think after hearing a whole year of, being told that he's maybe not the guy, that he's not aggressive on offense.
Well, when
whatever it
you
is,
can't when you're at that level, you can't let media dictate how you coach a game. I mean,
I know.
at the end of the day, you're up 11. You do the smart thing. You kick it deep and let your defense.
I'm just saying, if that had gone his way, I'm not saying he's any better than he was now. I'm just saying if they had recovered that onside kick, or if they had come back and got a last drive touchdown, would the national media be crucifying him right now, like they are? I mean, that's all you.
It's
That's
definitely not like they are, but
I don't think that they crucify him. I don't think they praise him though.
I've heard nothing about, but I mean, Scott Frost is the headline on everything you look at.
well, yeah.
I don't
As he
think
said,
It's the biggest game of week 0, so I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of expected.
We spent a little too much time on this. I don't want to make it run too long, so let's go ahead and segue away. We don't want to give them too much attention, too much negative press. We don't want to we don't want them to bring these clips back up to our face if they prove us wrong here. We don't want to be one of the people he's got on his little list.
Prove me wrong.
All right, yeah.
I'm
Please prove me wrong. I'm rooting for you. I picked you to be good. I don't think the season's lost right now, but what does determine if you lose the season is today, whenever you get back, the practices that come this week. Whatever you do to prepare this next 2 weeks, going into that Oklahoma game, you have to be perfect. You had no room for error this year, but the expectations were lower. But now, since you dropped a game you shouldn't have, you got to do better than we expected you to. You have no room for error.